Have you ever looked at an old photo and felt time slip through your fingers like you never even touched it? Have you ever wondered why the years feel slow when you are young but suddenly feel like they are running when you are older? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about something many people avoid until it is right in front of them. The truth that life is short, and the older you get, the louder the truth becomes. But this is not going to be a sad talk. Buddhist wisdom does not point at impermanence to depress you. It points at impermanence to wake you up. There are two main ideas we are going to carry through the entire story today. One is that time is not your enemy, that unconscious living is. The other is that after 60, the most precious thing is not your schedule, not your savings, not your reputation, but your clarity, your kindness, and your ability to meet each day without regret. Let me tell you a story, not a heroic story, a human one, the kind that might feel familiar even if you are not 60 yet, because the heart recognizes the same patterns at any age. There was a man I will call Daniel. Daniel was turning 60 in a week. He had a decent life on paper, a job that paid the bills, a home that was safe, people who would say nice things about him at a dinner party. But inside, Daniel felt strangely unsettled, not panicked, not dramatic, just unsettled, like the ground under the feet was quietly shifting. He did not know what triggered it at first. Maybe it was the way his knees reminded him of every staircase. Maybe it was the way friends started talking about retirement and medical checkups more than travel dreams. Maybe it was the way the mirror held his face a little longer than it used to. Or maybe it was something even simpler, like how quickly a year passed, and then another, and then another, until Daniel felt as if he had blinked and the decades had moved without asking permission. One evening, Daniel was cleaning a closet and found a small box of old items, a few letters, a watch that no longer worked, a notebook from his 20s. The handwriting looked like another person. The sentences were filled with certainty, impatience, ambition, and a kind of hunger Daniel could hardly relate to anymore. Daniel sat on the floor with the notebook open, and he began reading lines he had written decades ago. I will travel more. I will spend more time with my parents. I will not let work steal my life. I will learn what matters. Daniel laughed softly, but it was not a joyful laugh. It was a laugh with a sting. He realized he had done some of those things, but not the way he promised. Work did steal more than he expected. Time with parents was not as much as it could have been. Travel happened, but often rushed, often distracted, often treated like proof of success instead of a chance to be alive. Daniel closed the notebook and sat there in silence. For the first time in a long time, he did not distract himself. He did not turn on the television. He did not scroll his phone. He just sat and let the truth speak. Life is short. Not in a poetic way, in a practical way, in a way that suddenly asked, "What have you been doing with your attention?" That night, Daniel slept poorly. He woke up at strange hours and stared at the ceiling. The mind started replaying memories like a film that did not care whether he wanted to watch. Moments of joy, yes, but also moments of pettiness, waste, anger, stubbornness, and fear. At around dawn, Daniel got out of bed and walked outside. The air was cool. The street was quiet. He looked up and saw the sky changing color, not dramatically, but steadily, and he felt something in his chest, a mix of grief and gratitude. Grief for what is gone, gratitude that he was still here to notice. He walked without a destination and ended up near a small park. There was a bench, And on that bench sat an older woman feeding birds with calm movements. She looked as if she had all the time in the world, even though she clearly did not. Daniel sat on the other end of the bench. They did not speak at first. Then the woman looked at him and smiled gently, like she recognized the expression on his face. She said, "Big birthday coming." Daniel blinked, surprised. "How did you know?" She laughed quietly. "I have seen that look many times, the look of someone who suddenly hears time." Daniel hesitated, then said the honest thing. "I am turning 60, and I cannot stop thinking about how fast everything went." The woman nodded. "Time moves like a river. The question is whether you drink from it or just watch it pass." Daniel asked, "What does that mean?" She pointed toward the birds. "They do not worry about being birds. They just live. Humans are the only creatures who are always somewhere else. We are in the past. We are in the future. We are in our stories. We are in our regrets. We are in our fears. Then one day, we wake up older and wonder where the years went." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He said, "That is exactly how I feel." The woman introduced herself as Mira. She told Daniel she volunteered at a nearby community center where there were meditation sessions and Buddhist teachings. She said she was not trying to recruit him, just offering a direction if he wanted it. Daniel almost said no out of habit, but then something else happened. He felt tired of carrying the same mental weight. He felt tired of reacting to life instead of meeting it. He felt tired of being successful on the outside and restless on the inside. So he said, "When is the next session?" Mira smiled. "Today, if you want." Daniel followed her. The center was simple. No fancy decorations. A quiet room. A few chairs. A few cushions. People of different ages, but many were older. Some looked calm. Some looked burdened. Some looked hopeful. All looked human. A teacher entered. An elderly man named Tenzin. He did not speak like someone trying to impress. He spoke like someone who had walked through storms and learned how to stand. He began with a question that felt like it was aimed directly at Daniel. "When you say life is short, do you feel fear or do you feel awakening?" Daniel did not know how to answer. Tenzin said, "For many people, impermanence feels like a threat. But for the awakened mind, impermanence is a bell that rings you back to what matters." He paused, then said, "After 60, the body becomes a teacher. The body teaches impermanence every day. But the body is not your enemy. The body is a messenger. It says, 'Do not waste what remains.'" Daniel felt something in his chest loosen slightly, as if the truth was still intense, but now it carried a path instead of a wall. Tenzin guided a short meditation. He told them to feel the breath, not to force it, just to know it. Feel the inhale, feel the exhale. Notice the mind wandering, and return without anger. Daniel found it difficult. Thoughts kept rising. Lists, memories, worries. At one point, Daniel felt frustrated. Tenzin seemed to sense it. He said, "If your mind wanders, that is not failure. That is honesty. The practice is not to never wander. The practice is to return. Returning is awakening emotion." After meditation, Tenzin spoke about how to spend life wisely after 60. He did not give rules like a strict parent. He offered principles like a compassionate guide. He said, "Many people reach older age and feel a hidden panic, not because death is near tomorrow, but because truth is near today. The truth is that you cannot do everything. The truth is that some doors are closing. The truth is that you cannot buy back a decade. The mind hates this truth, so it distracts itself. But distraction does not heal fear. Wisdom heals fear. Daniel listened carefully. He felt as if someone was finally speaking to the ache he could not name. Tenzin said, "The Buddha taught that suffering is often born from clinging. After 60, clinging becomes more painful because reality becomes less negotiable. You cannot cling to youth. You cannot cling to unlimited time. You cannot cling to the fantasy that you will fix everything later." So the path becomes clearer. Let go, not because you are defeated, but because you are awake. Daniel felt resistance. Let go sounded like losing. Tenzin seemed to anticipate this. He said, "Letting go is not losing. Letting go is releasing what was never truly yours to hold. You never own time. You never own the future. You never own the bodies of your loved ones. You never owned the opinions of others. You only borrowed moments. And you still have some moments left. Spend them well." Daniel went home that day with a strange feeling. The fear was still there, but it had softened into something else. Curiosity, determination, a quiet urgency that did not feel frantic, but focused. Over the next weeks, Daniel began to return to the center. He listened, practiced, asked questions, and little by little, the teachings began to touch his daily life, not as quotes on a wall, but as choices in the mind. One day Daniel asked Tenzin, "What should I do now? I feel like I have wasted time. I feel regret." Tenzin nodded, and his voice grew gentle. Regret can be poison, or regret can be medicine. Poison regret says, "You ruined everything, so you may as well give up." Medicine regret says, "You see clearly now, so you can live differently now." The difference is whether regret is mixed with hatred or mixed with wisdom. Daniel asked, "How do I turn regret into wisdom?" Tenzin said, "Begin with forgiveness, not the kind that pretends the past was fine, but the kind that frees your heart to move forward. You did what you did with the mind you had at the time. Now you have a chance to cultivate a better mind. Do not waste the present by punishing the past." Daniel carried that sentence like a stone in his pocket. Do not waste the present by punishing the past. Then Tenzin offered Daniel a reflection that became a turning point. He said, "There are 3 kinds of wealth after 60. The wealth of time, the wealth of relationships, and the wealth of inner freedom. Most people chase money and ignore the other 3 until it is late. But you can still cultivate all 3, even now." Daniel asked, "How do I cultivate time? I cannot create more." Tenzin smiled. "You cannot create more time, but you can create more presence. Presence makes time feel spacious. Distraction makes time feel stolen. 2 hours of presence can nourish you more than 2 days of distraction." Daniel began to notice how much of his day was half-lived. He ate while scrolling. He talked while thinking about something else. He walked while rehearsing conversations. He watched sunsets while checking messages. No wonder time felt fast. He had not been fully there. So Daniel practiced a simple thing. 1 activity each day, done with full attention. 1 meal eaten slowly. 1 walk without the phone. 1 conversation where he listened without planning his response. 1 cup of tea where he tasted the warmth and smelled the steam. At first it felt strange. The mind kept trying to escape. But Daniel remembered the meditation instruction. Return without anger. So he returned. Again and again, something surprising happened. The days began to feel longer, not because the clock changed, but because Daniel was actually living inside the minutes. Then came relationships. Daniel realized that after 60, relationships are not just companionship. They are karma in action. They are the echoes of how you have lived, spoken, listened, and cared. Some relationships were wrong, some were strained, some were distant. Daniel felt sadness about the distance with his daughter. She was grown and busy, and their conversations were polite but shallow. Daniel used to blame her. She never calls. She is always busy. She does not understand. But Buddhist practice turned the mirror gently. Daniel began asking, what seeds did I plant? What did I nourish? Did I make space for her feelings when she was young? Did I listen? Or did I lecture? Did I show affection? Or did I show pressure? Daniel did not fall into shame. He tried to stay in medicine regret, seeing clearly, then acting wisely. He called his daughter and asked if they could meet for coffee. When they met, Daniel did something new. He apologized for being emotionally distant when she was young. He did not make excuses. He did not demand forgiveness. He simply spoke truth with humility. His daughter stared at him for a long moment, as if she was meeting a new version of her father. Then her eyes softened, and she said, I have waited a long time to hear that. That moment did not erase the past, but it changed the future. Daniel realized that wisdom after 60 is often not about learning new information. It is about practicing repair. Repair is compassion in action. Repair is courage mixed with gentleness. Repair is karma transforming itself. Then came inner freedom, the wealth Tenzin spoke about. Daniel asked, what is inner freedom really? Tenzin said, inner freedom is the ability to experience life without being owned by your cravings and fears. It is the ability to feel pain without adding hatred. It is the ability to enjoy pleasure without clinging. It is the ability to face aging without panic. It is the ability to face death without denial. Daniel swallowed hard at that last part. Death. Tenzin did not speak about death to frighten them. He spoke about death as a teacher. He said, if you do not contemplate death, you will waste life. Not because you are a bad person, but because you will keep living as if you have unlimited later. Daniel asked, how do I contemplate death without becoming depressed? Tenzin answered, you contemplate death the way you contemplate sunrise, not with fear, but with honesty. Death is part of nature. Impermanence is nature. The Buddha did not ask you to deny nature. He asked you to understand it so you can live wisely inside it. Daniel began a practice that sounded simple but felt powerful. Each night, he would ask himself, if I did not wake up tomorrow, would I be at peace with how I used today? Not in a guilty way, in an awakening way. At first, the answer was often no. Daniel would realize he wasted hours on irritation, on meaningless arguments, on distractions that did not nourish. But instead of collapsing, Daniel used the question as guidance. Tomorrow, I will choose differently. Slowly, the answer shifted. Some nights the answer became yes, not because the day was perfect, but because Daniel had lived it with intention. He had been kind. He had been present. He had taken care of his body without obsessing. He had offered help to someone. He had apologized where needed. He had forgiven where possible. He had meditated even for a few minutes. He had watched the sky and actually seen it. One day Daniel asked Mira, the woman from the bench, why she seemed so calm even though she was older too. Mira smiled. I do not know what will happen tomorrow, but I know what I practice today. And what I practice today becomes the mind I live in tomorrow. Daniel said, sometimes I still feel fear. Mira nodded. Fear is human. The question is whether you let fear drive the bus. When fear drives, you hurry and you cling and you become harsh. When wisdom drives, you slow down and you open your hand and you become kind. Daniel began to see that after 60, Wisdom is not luxury. Wisdom is survival. Not survival of the body, because the body will still change, but survival of the heart, the ability to meet change without breaking. As Daniel continued practicing, he noticed several common traps that many older people fall into. He did not judge them, because he recognized them in himself. He simply saw them. One trap is living in resentment. Resentment is a story that says life owed you something unfailed to pay. Resentment keeps you tied to the past, and it steals the present. It feels like power, but it is actually bondage. Daniel used to replay old injustices. A co-worker who got promoted unfairly, a friend who betrayed trust, a family member who spoke harshly. Each memory would tighten his chest. Tenzin offered a teaching that became a key. He said, "Holding resentment is like carrying burning coals to throw at someone. You burn first." Daniel realized that he was punishing himself for other people's past actions. So he practiced letting go, not forgetting, not pretending, but releasing the emotional grip. He would name the resentment, feel it in the body, breathe, and then ask, "What does wisdom ask of me now?" Sometimes wisdom asked for boundaries. Sometimes wisdom asked for forgiveness. Sometimes wisdom asked for acceptance. Another trap is living in nostalgia. Nostalgia can be sweet, but when it becomes a refuge from the present, it becomes another form of clinging. Many people after 60 talk only about how things used to be. They use the past as a place to live because the present feels unfamiliar. Daniel noticed this in himself too. He would think, "My best years are gone. Everything used to be easier. I used to be stronger. People used to be more respectful." Tenzin said, "The past is a memory, not a home. If you live in memory, you miss the miracle of what is still here." Daniel began to note his small joys available now, not the flashy joys of youth, but the deep joys of maturity. A quiet morning, a conversation that does not need proving, a walk that is slow enough to notice leaves, a meal cooked with care, the ability to say no to what does not matter, the ability to recognize peace as something real. Another trap is living in fear of decline. The mind imagines worst outcomes and then suffers before anything happens. This is the second arrow. The first arrow is natural aging in challenges. The second arrow is mental terror and resistance. Daniel practiced meeting fear with awareness. When fear appeared, he did not fight it. He watched it. He named it. Fear is here. Tightness is here. Future images are here. He remembered what Tenzin said. "You are not fear. You are the awareness that knows fear." This did not erase fear completely, but it reduced suffering. Fear became a visitor, not a ruler. Another trap is clinging to identity. After 60, many people lose roles. They retire. They are no longer defined by job titles. Children grow. Social circles change. The mind asks, "Who am I now?" Daniel felt this strongly. He realized he had built his identity on being useful, being productive, being respected. When those things wobbled, he felt empty. Tenzin taught a deeper Buddhist view. He said, "Your true identity is not your role. Your true nature is awareness and the capacity for compassion. Roles come and go, titles come and go, but the heart can keep maturing." Daniel began to shift his purpose from being impressive to being helpful. He volunteered. He mentored younger people at work without needing credit. He supported a friend going through illness. He practiced patience with strangers. He realized that kindness is a form of spiritual wealth that does not retire. As months passed, Daniel started to look different. Not younger, but lighter. Friends noticed. They asked what changed. Daniel did not preach. He simply spoke honestly. I realized I was living as if I had unlimited time. Now I am trying to live as if each day matters, not in panic, but in presence. One friend said, "I wish I could stop worrying." Daniel remembered his own worries and said, "Worry is the mind trying to control what it cannot control. Practice is learning to live with what you can influence and surrender what you cannot." That friend asked, "How do you surrender?" Daniel said, "I breathe. I return. I remind myself that impermanence is natural. I focus on the next wise action. I stop feeding the story that I must predict everything to be safe." This became one of Daniel's biggest learnings. After 60, you do not need more complexity. You need more truth. Truth simplifies. Truth cuts through unnecessary drama. Truth makes your choices clear. One day Daniel asked Tenzin, "If life is short, should I rush to do everything now?" Tenzin smiled. That is the ego trying to turn wisdom into another form of craving. If you rush, you will waste life again, just with spiritual words. The point is not to do more. The point is to do what matters, with a calm mind and a kind heart. Daniel sat with that. The point is not to do more. The point is to do what matters. So Daniel began to ask a simple question before making decisions. Does this reduce suffering? Does this cultivate wisdom? Does this cultivate compassion? Does this align with my deepest values? This question saved Daniel from many distractions. When a friend invited him to gossip about someone, Daniel felt the old habit rise. Gossip gave a quick sense of belonging, but it left a bitter taste. Daniel asked, "Does this reduce suffering?" He chose to change the subject gently. When Daniel felt tempted to start another argument with his brother about old family issues, Daniel asked, "Does this cultivate compassion?" He chose a different approach. He listened. He spoke calmly. He set a boundary without aggression. When Daniel felt pulled into endless news cycles that made him anxious, he asked, "Does this cultivate wisdom?" He limited consumption and increased meditation and time in nature. These choices did not make Daniel's life perfect, but they made Daniel's mind more peaceful, and that peace changed everything else. Now let me share a part of the story that many people find difficult because it touches the deepest fear: illness, loss, the uncertainty of the body. A year after Daniel began practicing, he received news that a close friend had been diagnosed with a serious condition. Daniel felt fear rise immediately, not only for his friend, but for himself. The mind whispered, "This could happen to you." Daniel went to visit his friend. The friend looked tired, but also strangely calm. They sat together in quiet conversation. At one point, the friend said, "I used to fear this, but now I see it is part of life. I do not like it, but I do not want to waste what remains with panic." Daniel felt tears come, not dramatic, just honest. He realized that Buddhist practice was not about avoiding pain. It was about meeting pain without losing the heart. Later, Daniel asked Tenzin, "How do I support someone who is suffering without feeling helpless?" Tenzin said, "Do not underestimate presence. People think they need perfect words. Often the greatest gift is steady presence. Listen, offer practical help, speak truth gently. Do not make their pain about your fear. Let compassion be bigger than anxiety." Daniel followed this. He visited. He listened. He brought food. He drove to appointments. He sat in silence when there was nothing to say. He learned that compassion is not a feeling. Compassion is practice. It is action rooted in the recognition that we share the same fragile human life. This recognition became another deep teaching for Daniel. After 60, loneliness can become sharp, especially when social circles shrink. But Buddhism offers a remedy that is not superficial. The remedy is connection through compassion. When you turn your attention outward in a caring way, you dissolve the prison of self-obsession. You become part of the living web again. Daniel began to greet neighbors more. He learned names. He asked how people were. He listened. He noticed how many people, young and old, carry quiet suffering. And he noticed that even small kindness can ease that suffering. This brought Daniel a different kind of happiness. Not excitement, not entertainment, but meaning. A sense that life still mattered deeply. Now, let us talk about the phrase, spend it wisely. Many people hear that and think about money, travel, bucket lists, achievements. But Buddhist wisdom points to a different spending. Spending your attention, spending your energy, spending your words. After 60, where you place your attention becomes your life. If you place attention on resentment, you live in bitterness. If you place attention on gratitude, you live in warmth. If you place attention on fear, you live in tension. If you place attention on compassion, you live in connection. Daniel began a gratitude practice, not forced, not cheesy, but real. Each evening he named 3 things he was grateful for. Some were big, like a conversation with his daughter that felt honest. Some were small, like sunlight through a window. Some were simple, like having enough food. This practice did not erase problems, but it changed the mind's default setting. The mind stopped scanning only for threat and started noticing beauty too. This is wisdom, seeing the whole picture. Daniel also began practicing ethical clarity. He realized that inner peace is strongly connected to how you live. If you lie, you carry tension. If you harm others, you carry a shadow. If you use people, you feel empty. But if you live with integrity, the mind becomes clean. After 60, many people feel an urge to simplify. And Buddhist wisdom supports this. Simplify possessions. Simplify commitments. Simplify grudges. Simplify ego games. Daniel cleaned his home. But more importantly, he cleaned his schedule. He stopped saying yes to things that drained him. He stopped spending time with people who only wanted drama. He chose fewer activities, but more meaningful ones. He realized something that surprised him. When you have less time, you also have less patience for nonsense. That can make you bitter, or it can make you wise. Daniel chose wise. Now, one day at the center, Tenzin told a short story that stayed with Daniel. He said there was an old farmer who kept complaining that life was unfair. The farmer compared himself to others, held grudges, and worried constantly. One day the farmer fell sick. Lying in bed, the farmer realized time was short. He said, "I wish I could go back and live differently." A monk visited him and said, "You cannot go back, but you can live differently now." The farmer said, "But what can I change at the end?" The monk replied, "You can change the mind that meets the end. That changes everything." Daniel felt those words settle in his bones. You can change the mind that meets the end. He realized that fear of death is often fear of unfinished business, fear of regret, fear of not having lived truthfully. So the wise response is not to deny death, but to reduce regret. How do you reduce regret? Not by becoming perfect, by practicing sincerity. Speak what matters. Apologize when needed. Forgive when possible. Spend time with people you love. Do not postpone your heart. Daniel began to call his mother more often. She was aging too. Their conversations used to be short and surface level. Now Daniel asked deeper questions. What was your life like when you were young? What do you regret? What are you proud of? What do you want me to know? His mother was surprised at first. Then she began to open up. Daniel learned stories he never knew, pain his mother never spoke about, dreams she set aside, love she carried silently. Daniel felt a deep tenderness. He realized that every person is living a complex inner life, and we often never ask. So much connection is left untouched. After those calls, Daniel felt both sadness and gratitude. Sadness for lost time, gratitude that there was still time now. This is one of the greatest lessons after 60. You cannot change the past, but you can change your relationship with the past. You can honor it without living inside it. Daniel also began to practice meditation more seriously, but still gently. He did not aim for mystical experiences. He aimed for clarity. He noticed that meditation strengthened his ability to respond instead of react. That skill became precious in aging. When the body hurt, Daniel practiced breathing through discomfort rather than immediately spiraling. When someone criticized him, Daniel practiced letting the words pass without taking them as identity. When loneliness appeared, Daniel practiced meeting it with kindness instead of numbing it with endless screens. He was not perfect. Some days he still got irritable. Some days he still fell into distraction. But he returned. Returning became his dignity. Now, I want to talk about something that often appears after 60, the question of meaning. Many people chase meaning when they are young, but they have energy. After 60, meaning becomes less philosophical and more urgent. What was it all for? What matters now? Buddhist wisdom does not answer meaning with a single sentence. It answers meaning with a direction. Reduce suffering. Cultivate wisdom. Cultivate compassion. Live with integrity. Wake up. Daniel began to see meaning in simple things. Teaching his grandson how to tie shoes without impatience. Sitting with a friend who was grieving. Listening to his daughter without needing to fix her. Offering a calm presence in a world that often feels frantic. He realized that a peaceful person is valuable. In a society full of agitation, a calm heart is like a shelter. One day, Daniel met a younger man at the center, someone in his 30s, anxious and restless. The younger man said, "I feel like life is running and I cannot catch it." Daniel smiled gently and said, "I used to live like that. Then I realized life is not something you catch. It is something you inhabit." The younger man asked, "How do I inhabit it?" Daniel said, "Begin with one breath. Begin with one kind act. Begin with one honest moment. Then do it again." That younger man looked skeptical, like it was too simple. Daniel understood. When you are young, you think complexity means truth. When you are older, you learn that simplicity is often the deepest truth. Now, let us move toward the closing reflection. Because a story is meant to come back to the listener. You might not be 60. You might be far from it. But the truth of impermanence is not only for older people. It is for anyone who is alive. The real question is not when you will think about time. The real question is whether you will let time wake you before it scares you. Daniel turned 60, and instead of throwing a big party to distract himself, he chose something different. He invited a few close people to a simple dinner. At the dinner, he told them the truth. He said, "I used to live as if I had unlimited time. Now I want to live differently. I want to be more present with you. I want to be kinder. I want to waste less time on anger and worry. I want to spend what remains wisely." There was silence. Then people began to share their own feelings. Someone admitted fear of aging. Someone admitted regret about a relationship. Someone admitted they felt lonely. Someone admitted they felt like they were living on autopilot. That dinner became something deeper than celebration. It became awakening in community, the kind of moment that reminds you why relationships matter. We do not heal alone. We wake up together. Later that night, Daniel sat quietly unreflected on what changed in him. Life was still impermanent. The body was still aging. The future was still uncertain, but his heart felt steadier. He realized the difference was not that he found a way to stop time. The difference was that he stopped fighting time. He started cooperating with reality. He accepted impermanence, and in that acceptance, he found peace. He practiced mindfulness, and in that practice, he found presence. He cultivated compassion, and in that cultivation, he found connection. He honored karma, and in that honoring, he found direction. He practiced letting go, and in that letting go, he found freedom. Now I want to speak to you directly, because this is where the story becomes your mirror. If you are older and you feel time speeding up, you are not broken. You are waking up. The question is what you do with that awakening. You can panic and cling and become bitter, or you can soften and simplify and become wise. If you are younger and you think you have plenty of time, I am not here to frighten you. I am here to invite you. Do not wait until your body forces the lesson. You can begin now. You can begin spending attention wisely now. You can begin speaking kindly now. You can begin practicing mindfulness now. You can begin repairing relationships now. You can begin letting go of grudges now. You can begin living with integrity now. Because one day, sooner than you think, you will look back and wonder where the years went. And the best answer is not, I was distracted. The best answer is, I was here. I lived. I loved. I learned. I practiced. I have seen people who reached older age with hard hearts. They collected achievements, but carried bitterness. They could not enjoy peace because they spent decades feeding resentment and craving. I have also seen people who reached older age with soft eyes and steady minds. They were not rich in money, but they were rich in inner freedom. They could sit in silence without fear. They could face difficulty without collapsing. They could offer kindness without needing praise. They felt grateful for small things. They felt connected to others. What created the difference? Not luck alone. Practice. Daily choices. Seeds planted over time. Karma lived consciously. This is the deep hope in Buddhist teaching. Destiny is not only what happens to you. Destiny is also what you cultivate through intention and action. Even after 60, you can still cultivate. Even after mistakes, you can still repair. Even after loss, you can still love. Even in aging, you can still awaken. Now, let me share a personal style reflection, the kind that builds real resonance. I have met many people who say, I wish I started earlier. I wish I told people I love them more. I wish I stopped caring about what strangers thought. I wish I did not waste so much time worrying. And every time I hear that, I think of this simple truth. You cannot go back, but you can begin. And beginning is not small. Beginning is the most powerful thing a human heart can do. You might feel that your past choices trapped you, but the Buddha taught that the mind can be trained. Today you can plant a new seed, a seed of kindness, a seed of patience, a seed of honesty, a seed of presence, a seed of wisdom. And even if you are older, seeds still grow. They might grow in quieter ways, but they grow. They grow into peace. They grow into forgiveness. They grow into a lighter heart. They grow into a different way of meeting the end, whenever the end comes. So here is the invitation I want to leave you with. Choose one thing you will stop wasting your time on. Maybe it is arguing. Maybe it is gossip. Maybe it is resentment. Maybe it is endless scrolling. Maybe it is comparing yourself to others. Maybe it is postponing what matters. And choose one thing you will start spending your time on. Maybe it is calling someone you love. Maybe it is taking a mindful walk. Maybe it is meditating for a few minutes. Maybe it is offering help to someone. Maybe it is writing a sincere apology. Maybe it is forgiving yourself. Do not wait for a perfect moment. The perfect moment is a fantasy. The real moment is now. Now I want to hear from you. What is one lesson about time that you have learned the hard way? What is one thing you want to spend more wisely from this day forward? Share your story in the comments. Your words might give someone else courage to wake up. If this talk helped you, subscribe to the channel for more long-form Buddhist wisdom and calm guidance for daily life. Like the video so it reaches people who are quietly struggling with the feeling that time is slipping away. And if you want to support the channel in a deeper way, consider becoming a member so we can keep creating teachings you can return to whenever you need steadiness, clarity, and peace. Until next time, remember, life is short, but your heart can be vast. Time is limited, but wisdom can keep growing. The body changes, but compassion can deepen. And even as everything passes, you can still live awake, live kind, and spend what remains wisely.